Hey y'all, here to talk today about the diligence calendar that we had handed out with the materials, or if you're online, that you should receive as a PDF, and you may also receive a hard copy of it, and just want to talk about how to use it, just in case we didn't cover the information or it wasn't clear. And man, it's such a great day to be a real foodie, to be in this world that we're in. So great, so great. I feel so great, and I'm so happy to be here, nudging you guys along and getting us all down this path. So, you know, in the past we've used journaling guides where we've actually written out all the different foods that we've eaten in a day, and I think that resonated with some people. Some people found it a little tedious, and so something that we've experimented with lately with our private clients has been just using a calendar to get a visual representation of your diligence over time. And I think this has been really useful, because what we want is we want as many consecutive days of being on point as we can, because the more consecutive days you get under your belt, the better you feel and the bigger the momentum and the easier it is to keep that up. You know, so if we're 80-20 every day, I think for most people, that's just not going to cut it. It's going to be better. You're going to feel a little bit better. Maybe you'll notice some things change or shift. But I think in general, what we really want is we want to have as many 100% spot on days as we can. And then, of course, everyone is going to have a suboptimal day, you know, and that's going to vary in degrees and frequencies and all that kind of stuff. But in general, what we want is as many consecutive days as we can of being 100% spot on, because then you really start to feel it. And it's like this attitude. This is what drives me. This is what drives most of the veterans that feel amazing on a daily basis. It's like the more amazing you feel, the more you want of it, the more you want to hold on to it, the better you want to see. You want to see how far you can go with it and how clean you can get, you know. And then of course we all have days or nights of, you know, just kind of messing up or being suboptimal, or maybe we choose it, you know, we go out and have a good time. So this visual representation gives you an idea of how good you're doing with everything. So the calendar's been great, and we're just using simple smiley faces. Let's touch on the moderation guidelines, because that will make this calendar make sense with the smiley faces. There's certain foods that are perfectly approved all the time, and there's really no moderation to it, and that's the things that we see in that big plate in our definition of real food. So the meats and fats and vegetables, for the most part, it's like, you know, you don't have to moderate those things because they're so nutrient dense. They auto-regulate themselves, and for most of us, they're going to send us these appetite-regulating signals over time. Maybe not within the first few days, but over time, that's what starts to happen. Full-fat dairy, too, we'd say, I mean, obviously, you know, full-fat dairy is a smaller part of everything that we're doing, but there is no moderation as far as times of day, and a little bit of common sense there. Cream in your coffee, you know, half a carton of cream in your coffee is probably not ideal, but a little bit of cream in your coffee, a little bit of cheese with most of your meals is going to be, you know, perfectly acceptable, perfectly appropriate. The next thing that we want to look at is a moderated category, which is still, we're still in the approved definition of real food, 100% real food, being a real foodie. But these are things like carbohydrates that we want to time at a specific time of day, and then we want to make sure that we're being aware of the amounts. This is the only thing that we'd be slightly neurotic about, but it's worth it. We want to have the carbohydrates in. Remember, we're not low carbers. We love carbohydrates. We love them from the right sources. We love the nutritional value that we get from those carbohydrate sources, but we do want to moderate these. We'd say a maximum of a cup per evening of safe starches and a maximum of a cup per evening of fruit, but I think the sweet spot for most people is going to be 3/4 of a cup. For me personally, I usually do a half a cup, and it's a rounded half a cup, so that's probably closer to 3/4 of a cup of, you know, my fruit bar and then whatever safe starch I'm having for the evening, and that's still relatively lower carbish and still makes you feel amazing. You still get the nutrients from the different carb sources, and we're going to get into fat burning in our own way. You know, we do that with the Ideal Days meals and fasting and some other stuff that we'll talk about. We'd say when it comes to nuts and seeds, we already mentioned this before, a handful of mixed nuts and seeds is going to be great most days. A Costco container or a half a Costco container of macadamia nuts is probably not going to be optimal. All right, so I'd say about a handful of nuts and seeds per day. If you're doing some dark chocolate and it's the low sugar content, half a bar of that per evening, a quarter bar per evening is going to be perfectly appropriate. And then a drink of alcohol per day is going to be perfectly fine. And that can be, you know, dry liquors, gluten-free beer, whatever kind of floats your boat, okay? Then we get into the moderate a lot category, and this is the straight face stuff. So these would be things that we really got to be careful about and that we should only be turning to on special occasions. And that would be all the different things like gluten-free pizzas, the ice cream, the sweet dark chocolate, the eating out sushi rolls, all you can eat sushi rolls, sweet alcohol drinks like Moscow Mules, especially if you're having multiple of them, and then all the different approved dessert options that we have access to, whether it's homemade stuff or stuff that we can buy in the store, and that also includes approved chips and approved pastas. So it's great that we have these things that we can turn to that are made with the right ingredients, because that's a step in a better direction. Like if we're back in the realm of doing the wrong thing, and then we have these things that are completely toxic, and then we move towards something that's made with the right ingredients, that's a step in a better direction. But we really want to be moving towards these things with a lot of caution, and they can be dangerous for a lot of us and problematic. I know for many of us, when we started this whole journey, we'd have the Strauss's ice cream in the freezer, we'd have the chips in the cupboard, and it was just way too easy to turn that stuff and snack on it when it wasn't really serving us that much. So what we would say is, what's optimal if you're using this calendar is you would want to have at the most 2 straight faces in a week, and that would help you moderate how often you're turning to these things. So if I have my calendar pulled up and I'm trying to get as many green days as possible, I have a straight face day, which means I'm still 100% real food, still in our definition, made with the right ingredients, still timing our meals right with the ideal day's meals and not having carbohydrates in the morning, 3 meals a day max, no snacking in between the meals. Those are all great days, but I do want to see what days I'm having my straight face days, because I want to regulate those to 2 per week. And if we stay with 2 per week, I think most of us are still going to feel great and see all the changes that we want. All right, so over time, even more optimal would be like you just don't turn to those things very much at all. But over time, we want to at the most have 2 straight faces in a week. When we get into the fasting piece of this, and by the way, if you're in the guide and you're reading through the guide and you're getting into some information that we haven't covered yet, like the fasting protocols, the low-carb tips and strategies, the tips on self-sufficiency and the cleanse and the self-testing and all those different things, that's interesting information, but the purpose of this 8-week progression is to ease ourselves into all these different things. So don't get ahead of yourself and start trying to do fasting and low carb and anything else, because that's the point of the 8-week progression, is to ease us through all that. But when we do get to the fasting protocols, we can also use this calendar to see how often we've accomplished various fasts, various lengths of fast, because we want to start to mix that up over time. Okay, so over time, again, what we're looking for is as many green face days as we can possibly get in a row, and we really want to pay attention to how we feel as we're going through that process. And then in the moment that you feel really good and your energy levels are starting to shift and you feel a little bit tighter and leaner, you want to acknowledge that. You want to pause and just have an attitude of like, I want to hold on to this. I want to use my choices now to serve me tomorrow. We call that using tomorrow for today. I want to think about, how is this going to make me feel tomorrow? I want to keep this going. I want to see how many days consecutively I can get. And then as soon as something happens and you fall off a little bit, then you just get back on and try to do it again. Most of us, I hope, are not ever having any frowny face days. Wait a second, I have frowny face days when I go out and I have a few drinks with our community, I guess that would be considered a frowny face day. But in general, we never go off food plan. I hope for most of us, we're never going off food plan, or it's very, very rare. But this should be something really useful to help you track your progress over time, all right? Let us know if you have any questions on anything. We're here to support you. We love you guys so much.